So this week's Lovefly podcast, we welcome Patty from Patty Travel Adventures. Woo! So I found Patty on through Instagram, and I was curious. I won't give away the story, but there was something about some of her posts that I just thought, oh, that'll be a really interesting one for the Lovefly listeners. So welcome, Patty. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Awesome. So, Patty, tell us about this Patty Travel Adventures, how that all started. Tell us a bit about yourself. I know you're over in Canada somewhere, but all that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I live in the suburbs of Toronto in Canada. And I was horrible. I still am horrible at technology, and I was never on Instagram before COVID. And during COVID, I'm obviously a big traveler. I've loved it my whole life, and the world got shut down, and so everyone had kept telling me you should be putting your pictures on Instagram. And
Yes.
um anyways, long story short, I was going through pictures during COVID, and it just made me happy to put pictures on Instagram and talk to people around the world. And it just kind of blew up from there. So that's how Patty Travel Adventures came about. And I've just I just love talking to people around the world. And I've met a few people from here, and so it's just been fun for me. And yeah, so I actually work a regular job, 9 to 5 type job.
Mm.
So it is possible to keep traveling when you work 9 to 5. And I kind of these days I'm kind of more leaning into the midlife travel. Like, I want to fun and adventure doesn't have to stop when you reach a certain age.
Yeah, yeah. So when did all the travel side of stuff start? Where was your first trip, and where did you go after that, and
So
why?
I didn't own a passport until I was 21 years old.
Okay, right.
Um, we did not do a lot of traveling.
Mm.
We went to Florida, one year, my family and I, but I always had a love for the world. I always had a love, like just a curiosity about how people live, around the world. And I have always loved, loved, loved the more, um, I guess, off the beaten type path places,
Yes.
um, more remote places. I've loved that. I lived in
Mm.
Korea for a year. I lived in England for a couple of years. Got to do a lot of traveling when I was there. Um, yeah.
Yeah. So, so you had that sort of kind of like, what I mean, I don't know if you grew up in Toronto, but obviously there's lots of fantastic stuff there, and it's a big country in itself, and tons of things to do. Obviously, you can nip across the states as well,
Yeah.
so that you have got a lot literally on your doorstep, haven't you? So I can understand why people, like, you almost don't need to travel. You want to go skiing, you want beaches, you can go all of it, haven't you? So whatever you want, you've got it somewhere near you. So what was the kind of the moment that you thought, no, I need to go out and just go all these different places?
Well, I grew up on a farm, so I had honestly I had such a great childhood. It was my family is very close. I loved it. Um and so when I turned, I guess when I turned just in after university, a friend and we went on a Kentucky tour around Europe, and that was my first time overseas, and I loved it.
Mm.
And so it just took off from there. And then uh, when I finished university in like where I live around Ontario, it was at a time where there were no jobs. And so a friend and I decided, you know what, we're gonna go to Korea. Um, we're gonna teach English for a year, just
Okay.
just for something to do because we didn't want to waste a year. And so um I went to Korea, lived there. That was a massive change for me. And I absolutely loved every single second of living in Korea, and it was so different to what I had grown up
I bet.
around.
Yeah, yeah.
And it was a bit of a shock for my family, I've got to say. I grew up in a small town, from a farm, and And back then, there was no FaceTime or anything like that. And so it was a shock for my family, but it just literally took off from there. I knew right from then on, travel is a priority for me.
Mm. So for after there, how often were you away? What sort of stuff have you done? Tell us some of the sort of like the cool stuff.
Okay, so yeah, so I lived in Korea for a year, and then after my year in Korea, my friend and I, we traveled around. We started in New Zealand, went right up that kind of side of the world.
Yeah.
So I did a lot of traveling then. When I was in England, it's so easy to travel from there. I miss that living in Toronto, I have to say. And then every year I just kind of make it a priority. So um some of my favorites have been Madagascar. Ethiopia it was interesting. It was a tough trip, but very interesting. I've done the Trans-Siberian Railway.
Oh, that's amazing.
That was one of the best trips ever. Oh,
Really?
I just loved
I'm
it.
jealous. Yeah, I'm jealous.
It was just shockingly amazing. We went
Because
through Mongolia on that trip. Oh, so good. Tibet. I like I love wildlife. So I've done trekking in Rwanda to see the mountain gorillas.
mm,
Just this past year, my husband and I did a volunteer week at Care for Wild, which is a rhino sanctuary in South
oh,
Africa.
yeah.
Unbelievable experience. One of the best weeks of our lives.
Oh,
Um, yeah. I just I could go on and on. I really loved Central Asia, like Uzbekistan, Kyrgyzstan. I really want to get back to that part of the world. And I love Asia. I've always loved Asia. Myanmar. Loved Myanmar.
so what is it about that area of the world that you particularly like?
Um, I've always felt pretty safe in Asia. I mean, I know everywhere you have to be careful, but Asia I've always felt pretty safe, and I love the food. Anything with noodles, I love. So the food there, um, yeah, and the scenery. There's such a variety. And Asia's huge, right? Anywhere from
Mm,
Myanmar to Korea to, all around there. There's just, yeah, I shouldn't generalize, but I just love that whole part of the world.
yeah, yeah. And so when you are going away, how often are you managing to do that? Like you've got a regular job. I don't know what your holidays
Yeah.
like in Canada, but in the UK you get 4 to 5 weeks. That's kind of standard. I understand the States is a lot less. I don't know what Canada's like for that.
Yeah, we're not, thankfully we're not like the US. I don't know how they do it.
I don't know either.
It's to me like
Hardcore.
I it's inhumane. Um, so I'm lucky. I get 5 weeks, and then I also get the stat holidays. So I'm pretty lucky in that way. And I think later this year I even go up another week. So um I just try to everyone at work, they tease me because they know I hoard my vacation days, and I will only take vacation days if it's something really good. I don't just take vacation days and sit around. I use it to travel.
Amazing. So, but there is a yes, but to this was the reason people were thinking, well, so when we started the Love Fly thing, we wanted it to make it, not just about fear of flying, we want to make it broader, like why to love flying is like it gives you memories, things that you could just never do otherwise. And I was just looking at all those pictures behind you. Are those some of your adventures along the way?
Yes, we call this our travel wall, and it's our favorite spot in the house.
So talk me through a couple of those pictures. Obviously, this is for the benefit of those watching on YouTube, and for those
Yes.
who are listening on the audible version, you'll have to use the theatre of the mind to try and get. Talking so
So
much,
I
showing you
brought
some cool ones.
yeah, so that's Moscow.
Yeah, I thought it was Red Square. Yeah, I could see.
Yeah, Red Square. Honestly, that is the most beautiful square.
Mm.
And like seeing that Red Square is
Okay.
uh, I think when we were in Moscow to start the Trans-Siberian, we must have passed by there 20 times. We kept saying, okay, one more time. We just got to go see it one more time. So
Amazing.
that's
Yeah.
it's and then we've got that's for a picture Siberia. And the name escapes me of where the actual rock, what it's called, but it's in Siberia.
Mhm.
Um, I've got a picture of Madagascar. This is the baobabs, and that is one of my favorite spots in the entire world.
Wow.
That is Madagascar was you have to be ready for some tough traveling. It's not always easy for sure, but it is in my top 5 favorite countries of all time. I've got I've got we went to Bora Bora. Uh, I've got a picture of that. I've got a picture of Machu Picchu. Um, I've got the Taj Mahal, which
Yeah.
was a highlight too. Um, Angkor Wat in Cambodia. Yeah. Oh, Patagonia. Hiking in Patagonia. Oh, El Chalten. If anyone best spot to hike in Patagonia, El
Mm.
Chalten.
Okay. Well, John Bond, who is lives in Ontario, who works with us, he's done that.
Oh,
He loved it. He loved it. I think it was there. Was it last year? I can't remember now. It might be going back as well. So yeah,
oh yeah.
just fantastic trips.
Yeah, we do. And I love the mountains. And so we do a lot of hiking when we can. Whenever we
Mm.
get the chance, we do hiking. So we've done some great hiking around the world. Hawaii has some great hiking. The Yukon in Canada.
I'm just feeling a bit of. I'm getting a bit of FOMO here. I think that's what I'm experiencing right now. Some deep jealousy. I'll use some court. So why did you then start so you started uploading some pictures and stuff because you get a bit of peer pressure from that. And why now have you kept that going in terms of calling it Patty Travel Adventures? And because I see you've got a nice following as well. What sustains you, makes you, keeps you doing it?
I think I think just talking to people around the world every day, I get to talk about travel every day. I get to learn about other,
Mm.
I've gone on some trips based on what I've seen from people I follow as well. And, I've heard back from them that they've gone to places that I've recommended. And so that makes it and keeps it fun. Um,
Yeah, so what sort of like a little community then, really, isn't it?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I love the travel community on Instagram. Um and I've also, I've been able to do some work for a couple of hotels, a safari lodge last year. So that's always, I love highlighting places that I would go, and
Mm.
but I'm very strict. I have a very strict rule for myself. I do not promote anything or any place unless I myself would actually go or use.
Mm.
I have kept that that's a big thing for me. So I would never promote, and I'm usually honest. If I don't like something or something's gonna be tough, I will say it.
Mm.
So
No,
that's it keeps it, yeah, it keeps it fun for me.
yeah. And so have you got to the place now where, because I've had a couple of people on this podcast where their trips are pretty much funded now because of the following they've had over the Are you at that sort of celebrity status now where they're saying, yes, come over here, Panty, we want you?
No,
Not
and
yet.
you know what? To be honest, I probably, I mean, I'm not actively looking for things like that. I probably could, I could do more. Definitely, I could do more. Um, it does take time though, and it takes a lot of work. So if something comes up, I do it, but I'm not actively seeking. I would always love to, I mean, sure, I would love to do stuff like that. And maybe in the future when I have more time, maybe I'll get more into it.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it's just basically it's the time and me. I just
Yeah.
haven't gone straight into it.
Yeah. Okay. So now I'm going to ask you the question which people are thinking, well, why is Patty on here? And so the reason I wrote to you and said, oh, well, please come on, is that you mentioned about fear of flying. And I was then curious. I was thinking, oh, crikey. So this is somebody who's done a ton of travel and yet not a fan of flying. So do
Yeah.
you mind talking a little bit about that? So sort of like what that fear of flying is like, what you're worried about. Have you always had it? Is it developed? Anything like that would be really interesting, I think, to the listeners.
I have never been a good flyer.
Never.
That is, I
Not
do
from
not.
from the first flight, that was
Yeah.
it. You didn't like it.
Don't enjoy it. Don't it's more of a fear. I always had a fear because to me it just not it's not natural that you can be up in the air in that big thing with
Yeah,
all the luggage and how it doesn't fall out of the fly or the sky. I mean,
I know.
it's just not normal. And so and I'm always I'm always worried about crashing. I've even asked some of the doctors at work, I'm like, what would happen if this happens? Would I know what
Mm.
happens if, I fall out of the sky? It's,
Mm.
yeah, I've always had a fear.
But
I think
so how long have you had it? And has it got worse, stayed the same,
no,
reduced?
it's actually, I think it's gotten better. As I've gotten older, it's gotten better. Um,
Why is that
so
then?
I think, when I get into, now when I think about it logically, at any given moment, there are, tons and tons of planes in the sky.
Yeah.
Uh, so logically, the statistics, are in my favor that nothing's going to happen. I think when it happens, it's such a big deal. And when something does go wrong, there's a massive amount of people that it affects.
Mm.
Um, but in reality, around the world, there are just and I even driving on the highway, around Toronto, I see the planes coming into Pearson and it's a constant flow. So then I try to remember that.
Mm.
Um, really, and if it's my time to go, at least I'm doing something fun.
Well, I mean, yours is a life well lived, just by your wall of glory behind you.
I like to think so. I would not have any I have loved my life. I would have no regrets. And so, yeah. So that I think just me thinking about all that has helped over the years and me being more logical and I'm very practical. So I try to tell myself that.
Yeah, it makes sense. So do you mind if I ask what it is you're telling yourself about flying that makes you think it's unsafe?
Um, you mean if I tell myself it's unsafe or if I tell
So,
myself
so well, what is your fear? I mean, obviously, ultimately, everyone will say crashing because no one wants to do that. But there's normally, I would say that's reasonable for anyone to say I don't want to crash because no, who does? But it's like, well, what's yours about? What is it that you don't like? Is it, so the reason I'll give you some examples. So some people, it's like they don't like being closed in. Some it's the noises, some the turbulence, some not being in control.
I think um
There's
I
plenty
don't
of huge bomb, Patty. Let's take your pick. What would you like?
I think turbulence I'm not a big fan of.
Yeah.
Um I'm okay with a little turbulence, but yeah, if it gets rocky, and I've had a couple instances where you're almost landing and then they do a whoops, we got to go
A
back
let
up.
go range, yeah.
That's always a little interesting. I had one flight from I want to say I was going from Kyrgyzstan to Uzbekistan or the other way around. And it was an old plane and my seatbelt didn't even work. So that was a little, you know,
Yeah,
I knew it was
I'd
taken.
be with you there. That I wouldn't like that. That's fair enough.
I knew. I'm like, oh, but you know, I did it, got through it. But I also, you know, the other thing is I also, and this is probably again irrational, but I always worry about getting the plane getting shot down for some reason. You know, we're flying in the wrong space. And so, you know, just recently when that plane did get shot down, I was like, oh my Lord, that I've thought about that happening.
Yeah.
Those poor people. And I think for me is um if you're going down, I don't want to know. Like if I think that would be a horrible feeling. Like if you're going down, um, I think that would be a terrifying bit. And that is what would freak me out the most.
Mm.
Yeah, that freaks me out is the knowing if I'm going down and then yeah, I'd rather just blow up.
Yeah, me too. I mean, if I had to go, that's not a bad way. And it'd be ironic as well, you know, like as somebody who's run fear flying courses since '97, you know, to die in an airplane is probably going to be quite one of those sort of ultimate ironies, isn't it? You know what I mean? I don't think it's particularly likely, but that would be quite funny, really, wouldn't it?
And I always count. So at the beginning, I think I saw this on Oprah years ago. And they had somebody on and they said the first bit and the last bit are, and so I always count um on my way up and then I'm like, okay, we're good. Because they say usually if something's gonna happen, it's, you know, it's the first, I think it was 30 seconds. I don't know if that's true, but I remember that from Oprah. So I do that as well. After I get by that first bit, then it's a little bit better.
Yeah. But we talk about it differently. We talk about the fact that when you're near the ground, that's when the pilots, you know, are most on it because that's the time where you know you need to be thinking, you be really sort of paying attention to following the procedures and all the rest of it. So we don't talk about it in terms of being more dangerous or less dangerous or anything, but just more about the fact that you know from once you get above a certain height, you're on autopilot and they're managing the flight, you know, but just the takeoff and landing, that's where they just need to pay attention. Not that they don't pay attention to the rest of it, but they're on it.
Yeah.
It might be that. Unfortunately, sometimes the media sort of jump on it and say the most dangerous part of your flight is the takeoff and the landing, you know. So it's like
Yeah.
not strictly true, you know, it's like the whole thing is managed. But I can understand why people might get that. So you've got that, you don't like turbulence. But once you're up there, you're okay. You've been on all sorts of aircraft. You've been on some pretty ropey ones by the sound of it. You have a seatbelt. I mean, you can imagine you just in the developed world, you couldn't get just couldn't do that. You're just
Oh,
you're pretty brave then, really, aren't you?
I don't let fear stop me. When I want to do something, I'm pretty good at just, you
Right.
know,
Okay.
getting
How
it
do you
done.
do that? How do you do that? Because that's a little nugget there. You just said I don't let fear stop me. How do you overcome it if you don't like flying that much?
It's it's mindset. So with anything, you know, even when I go, whether it's flying or even when I go to a country where, you know, people have told me over and over, you know, you're crazy for going to that country. There's no way I'd ever go. Uh, and I do make you know, I research, I make you know, I'm not a reckless traveler. I make conscious research you know, decisions.
Yeah.
Um but it's a mindset for me. Like you can't I'm not going to let fear stop me. I will be cautious and I will but I'm not going to do because if you stopped, you know, if
Mm.
you don't do the things, then I wouldn't have all these memories on my wall.
No.
Half of these countries, people told me, you're crazy. Why are you going? And I learned a good lesson actually when I was living in Korea. And I learned that when I was young. So at that point, there was some political stuff going on in Korea. And my I woke up one morning and my mom had called me and she's like, "Oh my God, are you okay?" And I was like, "What's going on?" "Yeah, I'm good." And on the news back here, there was like riots going on in Seoul And I really had there was nothing. Like there was nothing. I think there was one little part of Seoul where there might have been a demonstration, but here they blew it up. And it was a very good lesson for me because what you see on the news, yes, stuff is happening, but it doesn't necessarily have to affect everywhere and everything. And that I think was a humongous lesson for me. And I've kept that with me. So that's why, and it's usually the people who've never been anywhere or who've not been to, more remote places. Those are the people who are saying, you shouldn't go, don't ever go. So you have to take it with a grain of salt too, who it's coming from.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's mindset. It all comes down to mindset. Everything in life, really.
So you never back down from going on a flight once you've decided you're going, even if you're feeling a bit nervous. You go anyway.
I go. Every time I have not backed out of any flight. Never.
No, okay. So, have you done anything to sort of research safety of flying? And you've got a little bit about, there's a bit of logic there. I got a sense of. I wondered if you had taken any classes or done anything like that.
No classes, but I definitely looked. I've what do they call it? Dr. Google. I've I've looked up, I've looked up stats. I've talked to people who are in the industry. We have a friend in, the flying industry. And so that's been good over the years.
Mm.
Yeah. Nothing formal though.
No, okay, that's interesting. I love your determination, that sort of thing about the mindset. I think that's really important. And the other bit I particularly loved, because I've got a bit of a beef with the media anyway, because when it comes to aviation, they publish stuff and it's often just complete nonsense. And unfortunately, and sometimes recently we had something recycled, which has triggered quite a few people in the Facebook group that I help run. And it's old news. It's an old thing, it's just been recycled. I just think that's really naughty. But unfortunately, people are going to latch onto that and think, oh, that's not. And I've when I've been overseas, I've looked at the FCO, Foreign Commonwealth Office, our government thing, and
Yeah.
looked at the threat level for the UK. Based on that, you wouldn't visit, and I'm living it, So you just have to be really careful, to say it's good to research it, but also you just exactly like your example being in Korea. That's just a bit naughty. The media love a story, don't they? A little bit of clickbait.
Yeah. They do. And rightly, I mean, my parents were, terrified, rightly so, right? You see, it looked crazy. And yeah, I can and I think that sways people's opinions of traveling to certain places as well.
Yes. Yeah, and it's such a shame, isn't it? Because when I look at your wall there, I just think, wow, that's just amazing. Just amazing. Those adventures you've been on. So I'm really curious then. So what's the plan? Are there places you want to go to you've never been to? That's the first question. And the second question is, where to this year?
So I've been to 77 countries so far. Never thought I would make it to those many. Loved every single one. Sorry, what was the first question again?
Oh, I have no idea. Yeah, so is there anywhere you want to go that you
Oh, yes.
I'd like to
Yes.
hasn't been to yet, and then
Yes.
also this year? Yeah.
Honestly, I still have a list of, so many places I would love to go. I would love to go to Antarctica.
Yeah.
People just seem to love that. I would love to go to Bhutan. That's been on my list. I'd love to get back to Central Asia again. I would love to get to Botswana. I've never been there. I'd love to do a safari there. I would Papua New Guinea. People always say that is pretty interesting. That's on my list. I would say Oh God. I always have Oman. Oman, love to get there. I've never been there. I can come up with trips. I can probably come up with 50 trips in the next day and would love to go to any of them.
I mean, how many countries are there? I mean, 77, that's a lot.
I think is there 197 or 198?
Right.
I think. I don't quote me on that.
Come on, Patty, what are you doing? You know.
I know I should know.
And so you've made a good dent in those then, haven't you? Crikey. And this year, where's this plan for this year?
So, actually, in a couple weeks, we're going to be in El Salvador.
Yep.
I'm excited about that because that seems to be an up and coming country. In the past, they had a it was dangerous, I think, but there's been a new government, and from what I've been researching, it's much safer. So we're going to go and check that out. I think, before because I think if it stays the way it is, it's going to take off in tourism. So we're going to go check that out. That's coming up. So I'm very excited about that. And I'm still in the planning stages for the rest of the year. I've got some ideas, but let's see what I can do.
All right. Okay. Fair enough. Yeah. And so I guess the last thing I'd love to get this thing about your mindset. Some people will be listening to that and think, well, how do you do it? If you don't like flying. So I'm really curious. What do you think? If you had to give a couple of tips, or like, what is it you say to yourself that when you are thinking that I'm not sure? What is it that makes you go, no, I'm definitely doing this? What do you have a little? Yeah, I don't know what I'm looking for really. Some magic.
I think, with anything in my life, whether it's flying or going to, because I'll tell you, the older you get, the more you think about things as well. So, because when I was younger, I didn't like when I was in a country, I didn't really think too much. You think you're invincible. As you get older, I think about things more now. And so I really have to keep that mindset.
Yes.
And so, you know, um, I might get nervous still about going, even if it's whether it's flying or even to a country, I still might get nervous, but um I've tried to develop the mindset, and it's really just telling myself, um, you know what? Give it a go. You've done the research. If you do the research, you can, put as many safety aspects in place for myself and my husband. We don't do stupid things when we travel. We use a lot of common sense. And so if that's really in anything in life, if you put the supports around yourself, if you do that, then you really, at the end of the day, you just have to do it. And you have to tell your mind, okay, we're just going to do it. And if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. Right? Like, what's the worst that can, I mean, well, the worst that can happen is you die. But if I do, then I'm doing something I absolutely love, and I would rather go that way than any other way. And so, I don't know. It's just I think I've always been a pretty strong. I have a strong personality, and I can I'm very practical. I'm very organized, and I think that's helped with the mindset as well. And it's just do it.
Yeah.
You just do it. Kick yourself in the butt and go.
There you go, folks. Kick yourself in the butt and go. Wise words. Oh, I love that. But somebody, that'll be it. There'll be that. Somebody will quote that at some point in the future. They'll listen. I got a bit nervous, and then I thought about what Patty says, and I was all right. So don't underestimate how powerful what you just said is. That's fun. Oh, brilliant. Patty, it's been an absolute thrill to talk to you. I am very, very jealous of all your travel and feel like an underachiever now. So that's it. I'm going to go. But I just yeah, absolutely brilliant, inspiring. And I just love, if anybody gets a chance, if you're listening to this and you want to see what I'm talking about, watch it on YouTube and you'll see what I'm talking about. The wall of glory behind Patty's head. It's just inspiring in itself. Makes you want to go to all these places. Absolutely brilliant. Well, good luck with the travel adventures, and keep doing your stuff and posting your things. And yes, amazing. Thank you so much.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much. My favorite thing to do in the world is talk travel. And so I always love this. And I always love, if anyone wants to reach out, and I'm always,
Oh yeah, so yeah,
always up for it.
how does anyone, if someone wants to follow you, how would they do that? What's the best?
Oh, yeah. So my Instagram handle is Patty Travel Adventures. And yeah, if anyone just wants to reach out, I'm always happy to have a chat. I always, there's been last year when I did the volunteer week at the Rhino Sanctuary, I had a lot of questions about that from people because it really is amazing. And so I've actually done a call with people. They said, "Hey, can we ask you questions?" And I've actually hopped on a call. I'm always happy to do that with anyone. So yeah.
There you go. Amazing. Well, you might regret that one. Hey, I've just want to ask you, you're up as like a travel advisor. You could though, couldn't you? You've been everywhere.
Oh, I'd love to.
You can imagine that. That'd be a perfect job for you, wouldn't it? Like to figure
Retirement.
as long as you get to go to the places as well, and it has to meet the code that you would either use it or go there. If it meets that, then it could be Patty Travel Adventures, travel agents.
Well, I have had some agencies reach out, especially from Africa, and say, "Hey, if you can get, 7 people, we'll go." I haven't really taken it seriously, but yeah. Who knows?
Sorry, go on.
I never say never. That's my other motto in life. Never say never.
Okay, nice. Well, I've known some cabin crew that have gone into travel advisory jobs because obviously they've been to lots of the places. So I can see why that would be that. Maybe that'll be your next career,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Retirement.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much for your time, Patty, and I'm very, very grateful. Like I say, totally jealous, and I won't. I'll have to live with that. I'll sort myself out, give myself a damn good talking to. But I love that. I found it very inspiring, and thank you.
Oh, thank you so much.
And if in doubt, just kick yourself up the butt and do it.
That's right.
Wise words.